Let me tell you that I have seen firsthand the impact of our broken immigration system. In 2007, my Senate office learned about a crisis occurring with migrant laborers in the tomato fields of Immokalee, Florida. Any folks from Florida here? All right, you know where Immokalee is, right? All right. The Immokalee workers, and these are the workers, were the workers, who pick the tomatoes that you get on your hamburger at Burger King and McDonald's. These workers were fighting desperately to increase their paltry wages and get better working conditions for the backbreaking work that they perform. In January of 2008, I went to Immokalee and I looked at the situation, armed with a letter of support signed by three of my colleagues, Senator Dick Durbin, Sherrod Brown, and the late Ted Kennedy. What I discovered was a human tragedy. Workers were being paid starvation wages, living in severely substandard housing, and subjected to abusive labor practices. The injustices of the lives of the workers was overwhelming. In fact, and this is true, it just so happens that on the day that I was there in Immokalee, on that day, 2 men were indicted for human slavery for forcing workers to engage in involuntary labor. That's how bad the situation was. Slavery in the 21st century in the fields of Immokalee in the United States of America. My visit there to the tomato fields was followed by a hearing in the Senate Health, Education, Labor Committee, on which I sat and still sit, and which was then chaired by my good friend, the late Senator Ted Kennedy. At that hearing, we heard the voices of Immokalee, workers who were at the lowest rung of the economic ladder, workers who had no rights. Because if they stood up for their rights, they could be arrested and deported. Now, I am happy to tell you that that particular story had a positive ending. The campaign by the Immokalee workers resulted in substantial reforms in the tomato fields of Florida, and in the aggregate, workers there have seen their wages increase by millions of dollars, and they have seen significant improvements in their working conditions. But how many more Immokalees are there? How many fields or factories are there where people, often without legal status, are used up and thrown away? We cannot continue to run an economy where millions are made so vulnerable because of their undocumented status. We have to ask ourselves, who benefits from this exploitation? And to understand that it is not only the undocumented workers who suffer, but every worker in America, because that pushes us into a race to the bottom.